Hi students, hopefully you're doing well. I finally got my voice back. Last week I had laryngitis and I had pretty bad allergies, and now it's kind of morphed into a cold, and so hopefully you're all staying pretty healthy out there because germs are going around. But like I said, I got kiddos at home, so it kind of comes with the territory. This video is to just quickly, briefly go through the different note-taking styles that we are going to be addressing this week. This week we're finally diving into some practical college success skills. We're looking at note-taking styles, and we're going to talk about there's a presentation on active reading. So those are the two topics that you're looking at this week. You're taking a break from the chapter assignments, and you're looking at more practical skills. So what we're going to talk about is note-taking styles. And I'm sure you have developed a form of note-taking over the years that may or may not be working for you. And oftentimes you can tell if it's working for you by the grades you get in your tests or assignments, because if you're not taking adequate notes in class, then it's really hard to know what information or pull information that's going to be helpful for you when you later have a test to take in the class. And as you probably are familiar right now, majority of your college classes, majority of what you're doing in those college classes is taking notes on what the instructor says, what's written on the board, that kind of information. And it's really hard to kind of decipher for some of us sitting there as a student, what should I be writing down, what shouldn't I be writing down? So we're going to talk about different note-taking strategies. For some of you, you might have a note-taking strategy that works really well. When it comes time for studying, you can go back to your notes and they're organized and the information is there and you're ready to go. For most of us, myself included, when I'm writing notes in a class, sometimes I get lost in the information. I can't keep up with what the instructor is saying. I don't know what to put or what not to put. And my notes end up being kind of disorganized and a mess. And then it makes it very hard to study later on when I go back to my notes. So let's talk about some different note-taking styles. And maybe some of them will spark some new way of possibly taking notes. So the different note-taking styles that are in this document are the Cornell method, the outlining method, mapping, charting, and sentence. So I'm just going to briefly, you can read through this document and you can look at the different styles, but I'm going to briefly show you a couple of them because they didn't have a sample here. The Cornell method that many students learn about is really a way of organizing your paper. Sorry, I had this bigger. So organizing your paper in such a way so that you've divided it here on the left-hand side into important facts or vocabulary or dates that the instructor then expands upon in the class during the lecture. So for example, you might have something here like personal responsibility for this class if this class was taught in person live. And then in the notes column, you're able to then expand and write what that is. What is personal responsibility? What's the definition? Maybe the instructor wrote the definition on the board. So you're organizing your paper so that you're having important key topics, vocabulary, important words, important dates here on the left-hand side of your paper. And then on the right-hand side, you're writing the explanation, definition, expansion of what that is during class. So during class, you're spending the majority of your time in this section of your paper. Now, this is an important tool. At the end of class, or maybe during your break or in the evening or at the end of the week, preferably the same day or the day after, at the end, you're coming down here to the summary and you're summarizing the information that was written up here. So that's a really important tool because if you write your notes, then you walk away and you move on to your next class and you never look at your notes until 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later when a test is upon you, you're going to forget a lot of that information. So it's really helpful if you can go back to this sheet of paper and in that same day in the evening, during your next big break, you summarize the information on your notes. This is just going to really enhance the information that you're learning. So hopefully Cornell method may be a good style for you because then not only can you use it to take notes during class, you can use it as a study tool later on. So that's the Cornell method. And there's more information in the documentation about advantages and when to use it. The second method is the outlining method. And this is a method that I learned when I was young in school, and this was kind of the old school way of taking notes, was the outlining method. And so if you think about it, this isn't the way your page is set up necessarily. This is, it shows it very big here. But the outlining method is basically creating categories such as category 1, here's your main topic. Today we're going to be learning about personal responsibility. Then you're listing it out. Letter A is a subtopic underneath main topic. For example, victim language versus creator language. So that would be your major subtopic. And then underneath you may list out numbers or letters with minor subtopics, and you indent it along the way. So you'd go through your sheets of paper in class and taking notes by outlining it in a very organized fashion. Main topic, a subtopic, minor subtopics, and details underneath. I started out writing notes this way, and here was my challenge. Sometimes I didn't leave enough room. I got lost in the information. I didn't know if this was a subtopic or a minor detail. An instructor may go back to a topic, so then I would have to write an arrow saying, wait, no, this goes back to this concept that they were talking about. So for me, I like keeping things very organized and structured, but the outlining method, even though it has every intention to do that, was hard for me to keep that up during the class time. So for me, it's a very nice way to use after, when I'm organizing my notes. Then I can put it in an outlining study tool. But during the class time, for me personally, this was very tough to keep up the structure and organization. Maybe for you it would work. So don't knock it. Maybe for you it'll definitely work out for you. But for me it was a challenge to keep up this system. And you'll see here it says one of the disadvantages, or the advantages, is it's very organized. But one of the different disadvantages, it requires more thought in class for accurate organization. So again, you have to be really in class pretty well at organizing during the lecture to keep that outlining method going. And there's some more information there. The mapping method, which may work for some of you who are a little bit more artistic, a little bit more of doodlers. The mapping method is a little bit more expansive in that you can kind of create an image on your paper that, for example, like this, they're talking about extrasensory perceptions, and there's lines leading out kind of like in like a tree with branches, and you can list out information there. And mapping methods can get really even more expansive. Mapping can even involve pictures. It can involve different colors. And so for those of you who maybe have a little bit more artistic side to you, or for those of you who like a more unstructured way of creating notes, the mapping method might be a good system for you to use. After the mapping method is the charting method. So here's a little bit of a description down here, or a little picture of the charting method. Again, it can be very organized, and typically what you're doing is you're creating different categories. So you'd set up columns in advance, and you'd title those columns at the top of your page. And this is for a history class. And then you would write the information underneath those different columns. I will tell you that sometimes I see the column method or the charting method work well in math classes. And some instructors even require that their students create columns for their math class. And so that can work really well, because then you can organize your paper showing things like one column would be the problem, second column would be the steps, third column would be your answer. So again, it keeps it very organized and structured so that you know how you got to the answer. So that's another way of taking notes. The Last method, I think this is the last method, the sentence method. Now, this is a pretty tough one as well because it requires you to listen and write very quickly in class. You're basically writing every new thought, fact, or topic on a separate line, numbering as you progress. So, for example, here you're writing here anything that you're hearing, you're writing down, and then you're creating a second line and writing information on your second line, creating a third line. So again, for this type of sentence note-taking method, you have to be listening very keenly to what the instructor is saying and be able to write pretty quickly or create a method for writing things quickly that you can later understand. So again, for some people this might work really well. For some people this is a little too disorganized, or it's just tough to keep up that listening and writing pretty quickly. But again, you've got to find what works for you. So that was a brief discussion on the different types of note-taking styles. You can definitely go through here a little bit more, fine-tune some of the information and go through a little bit more detail to see the different methods and what works for you. I say, especially for the discussion board this week, try a different style that you're not used to. Especially if your note-taking style right now is not working for you. Maybe it's just the way that you're taking notes. For those of you who feel really comfortable in the way you take notes and it's working well for you when it comes time to studying, then just keep working on perfecting your note-taking style and getting better and better at it. I hope you have a really great week. If you have any questions, any concerns, any dialogue that you want to have with me, please let me know. You know how to reach out to me, email or phone call. Hope you have a great week.